80% of the city was destroyed when it was liberated from ISIS.
Central Americans forced to flee their countries.
Women and children coming to try and buy basic necessities.
There are millions of people who have been displaced by conflict in South Sudan.
People don't have answers, they're just waiting.
What we do is report to bring truth to the policy debate.
Independent-minded, nimble, creative, that is Refugees International.
The world today is facing the largest numbers of people who've been displaced from their homes since these numbers have been recorded in the Second World War. And this is because of conflict, violence, climate change. We're seeing this in pretty much every continent and in Africa specifically in a lot of countries.
In the wake of the deadly Westgate attack, Somalians in the Kenyan capital fear they could face reprisals or another round of arrests.
Refugees International traveled to Kenya to assess the situation for Somali refugees and to shine a light on their experiences. It's very often refugees themselves that are the most powerful advocates. It was in Nairobi where I met a young Somali man named Abdi Iftin.
This was a time when Somalis were killed, and you cannot go to the court. You cannot call the police because it was the police doing this. Refugees International gave me the opportunity to both tell my story as a guest blogger on the website, but also to help interpret, translate, and get the stories from the people who had been affected by the refugee crisis. When Refugees International intervenes, it cracks open a window that I can see through the world.
The mission of Refugees International has always been, and will always be, to bring the perspectives of the most vulnerable individuals into the halls of political power. It began in 1979 as a response to a humanitarian imperative. Hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese people.
Eight months ago, Malaysia became fed up with refugees. Navy gunboats have towed thousands of refugees like these out to sea to uncertain fate.
If anything ever convinced me that advocacy worked, it was that night standing at the fence with Jimmy Carter. It was a warm night in Washington. We were singing as we marched to the White House. And then all of a sudden we saw a door open, and we saw this man walking down by himself. Someone said, "It's the president."
Shirt-sleeved President Carter, he saw them from his bedroom window. With just some security guards accompanying him, went out to talk. The president pledged the United States would, quote, "do all that we can to save the boat people," adding, "Together, we're going to let everybody on earth know that America has a big heart."
One of the things that RI has always believed is that one person can make a difference.
The fact that Refugees International gets money only from private sources and is so independent frees it up to be a truth teller.
I'm here in Balukhali in Bangladesh, not far from the Myanmar border. Refugees International has been working on the Rohingya crisis since the early 90s. So it really gives a unique and independent voice. When the crisis of August 2017 hit, when the Rohingya were being ethnically cleansed from Myanmar, Refugees International was one of the first independent groups on the ground there interviewing refugees about their experience, and that was within the first couple of weeks of that happening. Within the next day after arriving, we were already being asked to testify before Congress and bring the voice of those people that were there and what we saw to the United States.
The most recent estimates are that nearly 70 million people around the world are displaced, either outside their countries of origin or within their countries of origin. The work of Refugees International has never been more important to promote the ideal that we can be a country and a world that welcomes the stranger. In the coming years, Refugees International will be larger, more active, and more comprehensive in its coverage than we have ever been in our history.